At some point early in practice, you realize a weird thing. You can ask a normal question and still not get an answer. You might ask, "Is this right?" But you hear, "It depends." You ask, "What should I do here?" And you get, "Well, what do you think?" And if you're new, it can feel like nobody wants to help you, but that's usually the wrong read. Most of the time, they're not dodging you, they're just trying to see how you think. Because in practice, the answer is not the skill, the judgment is. And judgment is the part nobody hands you directly. You're listening to The Practice of Practice, a podcast for architects, designers, and emerging professionals navigating the gap between school and real work. We focus on the realities most people only learn through experience: workflow, judgment, responsibility, and time. It's not theory, it's practice. Here's what I want to say up front. This episode is not telling you to stop asking questions. If you take that away, you'll get worse. You'll get slower, and you'll definitely get more anxious. This episode is more about why the answers you want, the clean ones, the school-like ones, often don't really exist in real practice, and why the people above you sometimes respond in ways that feels frustrating on purpose. It's not mean, it's not lazy, it's not a mind game, just how the job actually transfers responsibility. The first misunderstanding here is that school teaches you that the world rewards correctness. You pick the right solution, you show your process, you defend it, and then you get a grade. Even critiques or open-ended studios still have a vibe of correctness. The professor is the final authority. They might let you wander, but the critique ends with a verdict. Good direction, bad direction, fix this, push that. Then you walk into a firm and the rules change. You ask a question and you're waiting for the verdict, but the person you ask is not trying to grade you. They're trying to keep a project alive. And that changes the entire conversation, because now the right answer is not the goal. The goal is the least risky decision that still moves the work forward. And the way you make that decision depends on context. A lot of context. Some of it's technical, some of it might be political, some of it's financial, and some of it's just plain experience. And you do not get all that context on day one or even year one. So when you ask for a clean answer, you're asking for something the room cannot honestly give you. Let's deal with the "it depends" answer, because everybody hates that phrase at first. It sounds like someone refusing to commit, or it sounds like a stall, but most of the time it means there are trade-offs here and you have not seen enough projects to spot them. It might be budget or schedule or phase, or what the client will tolerate, what the contractor can actually build, or what we can defend later if it gets questioned. Here's an office example that happens. You might ask somebody, should this be a metal stud wall or just masonry? And you want a sentence back. Instead, you get, well, what's the use? What's above it? What's the budget doing? And that's not a professor being annoying. That's somebody who has been burned before, because they have seen the plan where you pick the right wall assembly on paper, but then budget crushes it. And then it becomes value engineered. And then it becomes rework. And then the client thinks you didn't have a grip on the project. And relationships get hurt. So instead, they slow you down. They hold the decision open until the project gives you enough information to choose responsibly. It's not glamorous, but it's traditional, and it's how real work survives. A lot of senior work is basically this: protect optionality, avoid premature certainty, and make the call when the risk is understood. If you're early career, you're usually trying to close problems fast, because that uncertainty feels like danger. And senior people are often doing the opposite. They're keeping doors open on purpose for as long as they can. Not forever, but just long enough. Because the fastest way to create chaos is to lock in decisions too early. And then you spend the rest of the project paying for it. So "it depends" is often a signal that the decision is not ready yet. Not because you're not ready, but the project's not ready. So now the other part, which is, why do you get questions back? You ask a question, somebody asks you a question back. What do you think? What's driving this? What's the risk? Or what happens if we're wrong? It can all feel like a test, and sometimes it is, but it's not the test that you think. This person's not checking whether you memorize something. They're checking whether you can frame the problem. Because framing is the real skill. Framing is what lets you make decisions without someone standing over you. And here's the truth. If they answer you immediately, they learn nothing about how you think. And if they ask you a question back, they learn your process in seconds. That matters more to them than your conclusion. Let me say that again because this is the core of the episode. They care more about how you got there than the answer you want, because your process tells them what they can safely hand you the next time. And this is how trust builds in an office. It's quiet, incremental, and without ceremony. Here's another example. You bring over a sheet of drawings and you say, is this layout okay? And you're hoping for just a simple yes or no. They look at it, pause, and then say, well, walk me through why you did it this way. And it's not them trying to be dramatic. They just want to see if you considered clearance, if you considered your door swing, or if you considered how it would be built, if you considered the code trigger that you don't know is actually a trigger yet. They're doing two things at once. Yeah, they're reviewing the work, but they're also reviewing you. Not you as a person, you as a decision maker. And if that sounds harsh, good. Practice is harsh in that specific way. It's not personal, it's responsibility. But here's what nobody tells you. Responsibility transfers gradually, not all at once. Not through job titles, not through formal meetings where someone tells you, now you're ready. Nobody's ever going to say that. It transfers through small moments. You might be allowed to send the email instead of just drafting it, or you're trusted to call the consultant or the client instead of asking the project manager to do it. You're asked to present a slide instead of just sitting in the meeting. None of those are random. It's the office handing you a little bit more weight. And yeah, sometimes you can feel it when it happens. You can send the email and you reread it 15 times. You hit send and you immediately regret being alive. It's normal, but that's the job. And it's how it starts. If you're waiting until you feel confident, you'll probably wait forever. Confidence comes late. Responsibility comes first. You do not earn responsibility after you feel confident. You earn confidence after responsibility shows up. And that's the truth. It's not motivational. It's just accurate. Let's talk about the emotional side, because this is where people spiral. You ask something and you don't get a clean answer. You start filling in the blanks. They think I'm dumb, or I'm annoying, or I should have known this, or I'm not cut out for this. But most of the time, none of that's actually happening. Most of the time, the person you ask is doing one of these things. They're either busy and they can't safely make a call in just a few seconds or a few moments, or they're trying to keep you thinking instead of rescuing you, or they just trust your baseline and they're not trying to hover. We talked about this, and earlier in your career, silence feels like neglect because you still want validation. Later on, you realize the silence often means confidence. They're letting you do the work, not because they don't care, because they do. If they truly didn't care, they wouldn't ask you any questions back. They probably wouldn't even engage at all. That's what disinterest looks like. No attention, no follow-up, no investment. Questions back are attention. It's mentorship in the most annoying form. Here's another hard truth. If someone always gives you the answer, you just learn the answer. You don't learn the judgment. And the judgment is what scales. Because the moment the context shifts, the memorized answer becomes useless. You might have a different client or a different budget, a different phase of the project, a different subconsultant, different schedule and the pressure that comes with it. It's a different superintendent. It's a different construction manager. It's a different community. This is why you can't build a career by collecting answers. You need a way of thinking that adapts. And this is where some people get stuck. They become excellent at asking questions, but not making calls. So they keep waiting. They keep escalating every decision. They keep bringing work to the PM like, hey, can you just confirm this? And that project manager can feel it because it still means they're the ones holding all the risk. It's not about being right. It's about being willing to own your part of the risk. Practice doesn't reward the person who never gets corrected. Practice rewards the person who can move forward responsibly without constant supervision, not recklessly, not guessing, responsibly. That's a very traditional idea. This profession has always been an apprenticeship in judgment. We just pretend it's not because everyone wants a tidy process. Everyone wants a checklist. Everyone wants certainty. But the reality is older than that. Reality is you learn by doing. You learn by being corrected. You learn by mistakes. You learn by carrying responsibility before you feel ready. So what does progress look like here? It's not that you stop asking questions. It's that your questions change. Early questions might sound like, hey, is this right? Or what should I do? Can you check this for me? Do you want me to do X? Is it okay if? Those questions aren't bad. They're just normal early, but you can't live there. Better questions start to sound like, here's my recommendation for this and why. Do you have any concerns? Or I see two options. I'm leaning towards this one because of X, but the risk is Y. I checked these three things. Here's the part I'm least sure about. Or I think this solves the issue, but it might create this downstream. Do you see that too? That's a different posture. It tells the room that you're thinking like someone who owns the outcome. People trust thinkers faster than technicians. Also, a small note, because it does matter. Notice when someone stops correcting you immediately. At first, it feels scary. You think you're being set up or something. But a lot of time, it means your baseline is trusted. They're no longer worried about the fundamentals. They're watching the nuance. Corrections become less frequent and feedback becomes more strategic. The stakes get higher. It does not feel like progress, but it is. Let me give you a few small examples because this is where it becomes real. First one here, you might draft an RFI response. You send it to the project manager and you ask, hey, is this okay? But the PM comes back with, what are we trying to accomplish with this response? Which is a question back. And they're not talking about grammar. They're asking about the risk. They're asking if you understand that an RFI response is not just a technical answer. It becomes part of the record. It becomes part of the story. It can shift scope, schedule, cost, and liability. So that project manager wants to know if you understand what you're actually doing. Another one might be you're laying out a reflected ceiling plan and you ask, hey, we're doing the grid. Should we align these fixtures with the grid or with the furniture? And you want just a clean answer. And then the person above you says, well, what does the client care about? And what do we have control over in construction? That's not design theory. It's a construction reality. A grid alignment might look clean on paper, but fall apart in the field if the ceiling is a mess. Furniture alignment might be pointless if furniture is not in the scope or if the owner changes it midway through. So the question back is about what we can actually deliver. If you're doing construction admin and you ask, do we approve this submittal with comments or just reject it outright? You want a rule. And the experienced person is going to say, well, how late are they? And how hard are they going to fight this? And that's practice. That's not what they teach you in school. This is a person who knows that the same technical decision can have different outcomes depending on timing and relationships. So again, it depends. Here's the real reason this stage is frustrating. You're still thinking that your job is to produce the work, but your job is also to make decisions. And that's the shift. School is output. Practice is output plus judgment. And judgment is built indirectly. It's built through questions back, through pauses, through letting you hold uncertainty. That's why it can feel like nobody's helping you, but they are. They're teaching you to carry weight. So what do you do the next time you need help? You still ask. You just stop asking empty questions. You bring a position. Here's a simple structure that works in real life, and it doesn't sound scripted if you speak it normally. Here's what I'm trying to solve. Here are the constraints I see. Here's my recommendation. Or here's something that might be a risk. It can just be one sentence each, short and direct. And you'll notice something almost immediately. The conversation will start to get better. Because now the person above you is not being asked to think for you from scratch. They're being asked to calibrate you, which is what you actually want. Not answers, calibration. Because calibration is how you become independent. And independence is the thing that actually makes you valuable. So again, here's the point. I'm not trying to make it sound like a poster, but when no one gives you the answer, it's often because the answer is not the lesson. The lesson is whether you can hold uncertainty and still move the work forward responsibly. That's the job. School rewards certainty. Practice rewards judgment. School says, solve the problem. close the problem. Practice says, don't close it until you understand the risk. Those are different muscles. You build the second one through discomfort, and there is no shortcut. If you're in that uncomfortable phase right now, good. It's not fun, but it's normal. It's not a signal you're behind. It's a signal you're finally doing the work that matters. If episode 1 was about realizing confusion is structural, not personal, then this episode is realizing silence sometimes becomes the training. Not all teaching looks like instruction. Some of it looks like someone not stepping in right away. In the next episode, we're going to talk about mistakes, not dramatic mistakes or career-ending mistakes, just the normal ones. Why some get corrected with a calm email and a markup, and why others change how people trust you. And how the fear of being wrong slows more careers than being wrong ever will. The practice of architecture is not intuitive, but it is learnable. So don't worry, we'll keep building from here.